Okay, okay, so I'll put it back on. One second, I need to move this thing out the way. Beg your pardon. Okay, so day 4 of the 4-day AI challenge. So what we're going to do today, we're going to be looking at the new, actually, I'm going to touch on the new features of GPT. I know we spoke about u.com for research, but I want to kind of highlight something that's also coming, which is the GPT Plus feature. I mentioned that earlier in the week. It is available in the UK, although I haven't sort of seen it nor used it as of yet. So I know this is kind of the kind of new developmental feature that will appear, and I'll just say what that is. And let's talk about our AIs in action. Let's see what's going on with that. And thanks, Jessica, for sharing yours. Okay, so I'll give you some questions which you can then use to sort of ascertain whether the assistant that you created is doing the thing that you asked it to do. Okay, so and also you can get peer feedback and make adjustments for better kind of outputs or results. Okay, the new feature, which is the AI Plus feature, which is the GPT-4 Plus, that's what it's called, from my understanding, is it's and other tools will have this. I don't even know if Copilot does actually have this as of yet, but what some of these tools are able to do is they're able to process and interpret kind of multiple forms of data with things like text, images, audio, video, and they can do it simultaneously. You know how sometimes what we're doing is we're doing them separately, like in GPT-4, if we're using Dall-E to create an image, then it's doing that separately. Then we might be using video AI to kind of get videos. We may be using audio, things like 11 Labs to get audio where it can kind of clone our voice. So you may be using some of those tools, but maybe you're not. But this is kind of what a lot of these individual AI, kind of models can do. And what we've been looking at predominantly is the kind of like the LLMs, which is the large language learning model, large language models, right? Which is the natural language, sort of, that's kind of the text, if you like, we've been looking at. But the new features, what they're going to be able to do is they're going to be able to do all these things like simultaneously. So the new models will be able to mimic, and I put this in kind of mimic, how humans use various senses together. It's really powerful what will happen. So what it will be able to do is, say if you open your fridge, and we mentioned this earlier, it will be able to we'll be able to capture an image, and then it will look at the ingredients in your fridge and then give you a recipe based on that, like the kind of items in that fridge. And when we say humans are able to do that, maybe some people, maybe even humans, are not sure what recipe could be made from some of the products in the fridge. But I kind of like this, that it will give you some suggestions on things like, okay, you can make an omelette because this is what you have in your fridge. And okay, so it's also humans sort of like sensory processing, looking at data and kind of more holistic output. We're going to see more and more of this kind of emerging. Also finance, like, okay, so what's happening, looking at things like, like our own finances, right? We have tools that will kind of make predictions, and we can use it for things like marketing as well. So we'll have these kind of diverse data sets that we can kind of get a better overview, which is kind of the future to in its making, which is kind of coming in all sorts of forms. So yeah, there's lots of learnings as we kind of evolve in this area of AI. And okay, so over to us. So we want, for the purpose of the challenge today and kind of the final day together in this, is to make sure that our AI contains the information that we've set it in its parameters. And what I mean by that is, what information have we given it in the instructions when we've created our assistant or GPT or agent in some models, but in this space, in GPT-4, in the paid version, we want to be able to create these assistants. The whole idea is to be able to then use some of our own knowledge you know, whether we're using it to create content or we're using it to kind of draw on some data, that the knowledge that we've added in its kind of you know, list of knowledge base, the documents that we add, that it aligns with the objectives that we've set it. So we also then have to be mindful of the information we've added to that knowledge base, so it kind of understands what the instructions are there, so it understands, but also the information that you've provided the assistant is in the actual knowledge and it's able to access that. If it can't do it, then of course we need to amend if needed at that stage, and we can fine tune it. And it works pretty well. Like I've tested these out now, and it does the thing it says in the tin, and there's stuff that we may need to go back and refine. But on the whole, it kind of does a pretty good job, considering, you know, like we wouldn't be able to do this without having to go through it, like, you know, the whole document. So reviewing your AI system's performance, we're going to be checking for accuracy, efficiency, and the value it adds, right, to whether it's creating a blog in Kathy's case, or perhaps even a newsletter, or say if we're, you know, creating content for social media posts, or we're looking at summarization or writing a report, even using it kind of like extract ideas. And some of the things that I've kept this in, I know, Simbo, this is something that, you know, we spoke about before a few weeks ago, a couple of weeks ago. So I wanted to just highlight that actually, the more we think about kind of aligning our AI with kind of the mission, our vision, and our values, the more it will understand kind of where, you know, who we are in this space. And so it's able to kind of write, you know, so it's able to kind of align with our values, but also identify. So perhaps there's areas of creativity that we want to kind of infuse in that. For example, for Colleen's work, that could be something that you really want to kind of, you know, get the essence of that. Audience, does it kind of, you know our targets, demographics, pain points, preferences, dreams, desires, that type of thing. I wanted to keep this in. And the actual assistant that I'll share with you, which was, like I said, it was given to me by Amy and Ken. I'll look up their surnames as well, because I met with them and they shared this GPT where we can get to find out a little bit about what how we can serve others and what transformation we bring about in helping others. And that's done through a little write-up, perhaps from our website, or even scraping the internet, depending on how well we are known in the space of, you know, how well we get sort of identified online, because a lot of this information is out there. Personality. So again, how does your brand align with things like the tone, you know, is it friendly, professional, approachable? You know, maybe, you know, what sort of adjectives align there? So tone, voice, casual, warm, professional, neutral. There's always going to be biases, right? And I always say that any kind of tool we're using, there's always going to be an element of that. So it's being mindful of like, what input are we putting in there, what we're looking at. And there's this all kind of conversation about we're getting the stuff that's online. Like there's a lot of stuff we're not getting access to necessarily yet, but it, you know, but that's kind of where we are in terms of the space. Guidelines, you might say do's and don'ts. So you may say, you know, things to include, but things not to include as well, just to kind of keep consistency with your branding. But that's something you're thinking about. Now, when you check, I just want to, before I do this, I'm going to stop for a moment and I just want to stop sharing. I just want to see how many, okay, thank you. And you sent me, okay, thanks, Kathy. I just got that. So how many, so Kathy, it seems that you perhaps done this. How many have created your assistants now? You've all done that. Fantastic. Okay. And so Simba, you're kind of working on this at the moment. You're still in that, like, kind of putting this together. Yeah. But I understand you have GPT-4, right? You do have that one. You've got that. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, it'd be great to see sort of where you're getting on with that. So we're going to test it. We're going to test to see your own like what you've actually created. So there's okay, so we've got okay, I should say I have more information to feed it. I mean, okay, fantastic. Yeah. So you might have some documents that you've added to it. So perhaps you're not quite there with finishing it. Perhaps you feel like the knowledge base, but we can still test it out on what we've given it from what that is. So thank you, Ivan. So you've shared that. So how are we going to test this out is we're going to, maybe you've even tested it. Has anyone tested their GPT out or assistant out? Yes. Assistant, so yeah. So Kathy, what did you do so that I can kind of get a sense? And there's some questions we can ask it to see. Just Kathy, if you can. Oh, let me.
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
I'm forever just talking and I'm muted. Yeah, I just did something simple. Like I just said, you know, I talked to it like I was talking to a friend or something. I said, "Hey, girl," and it said, "Hi, how are you today?" And then I think I said, "How often will you be uh, producing this blog or whatever?" And it said, "Week." Let me find it, and I'll just read to you what it says here. Hold on, I have to go to this other world. Okay. Where's it at? Okay, right. Okay.
I just want to say quickly, Kathy, I love you.
Sorry, girl. I'm just real. I mean, it's just I'm over here on the struggle bus, but so I
You're
said,
doing amazing. You're doing amazing. You've done it, right? You've put it into action, which is incredible. Yeah.
yes, but I still have more information to add to it, but I just wanted to try it out. So I said, "Hey, girl," and it said, "Hey, how's it going?" I said, "How often will you share blogs?" And my GPT answered and said, "I'll be sharing blogs weekly. Each one will dive deep into self-reflection, growth, and embracing your authentic self. Something to look forward to every week." And I didn't respond. I just, wanted to see if it worked. So
Fantastic. Fantastic. So you know that it's picking that up. Okay. So we can go even deeper into this, right? Because once we've got this
yes,
information, that's fantastic. Did you then go back and put the number of words, like say you kind of
yes.
done that, right?
Well, only let's see. I think I said, where did I put it here? I thought I did. Let's see. Yeah, limit the number of words to 400 per blog or newsletter. And I
Fantastic.
don't know, I did just a little bit of research. I don't know if that's a good number. I think one article that I picked up, and I just simply Googled it. I had a really busy day yesterday and a busy morning this morning. So just kind of, getting bits and pieces at a time. So one said 300 at a minimum.
Mhm.
Another one said a maximum of 5 or 6. So I thought, well, 400 is a happy little medium. I added my email address. I don't have a specific website. I have a web domain name, but I haven't actually had a website developed yet for coaching. And that's what I want to use this for.
Mhm.
So I haven't added that yet. But I like the things that you shared this morning. Let me see, I just took a screenshot of it. The questions, like I really need to figure out the my target audience, and this may sound a bit I don't know, ambitious or bold or whatever, but I don't want to do this to play. I really want to develop this as a viable business.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
So I want to make sure that I'm targeting people, first of all, who can afford coaching
Mhm.
or who esteem it to be valuable enough to afford it,
Mhm.
because I already do plenty of free coaching. I've done two. They weren't intended to be coaching sessions, but they were. This morning, I've done two already. And I just want to, start to market it as a business.
Absolutely, absolutely. And this is kind of why I got into this whole area of building these assistants, because the thing is, otherwise we're just playing with these tools. We're not actually doing them to have a function for our businesses to support us, because most of us are going to be doing this on our own, unless we're paying assistants, because we could be paying like $400 or whatever. But actually, what we want to be doing is to kind of have that in-house and they were able to create content like newsletters. We're targeting the individuals that are going to, one, be able to pay for it, going to be looking at our content, and then, you know, it's kind of aligning with our messaging. It's so, yeah, absolutely 100%. And I can definitely kind of look at this in terms of, like, the thing we're doing is we'll Google things, right? In the future, we'll be Perplexity, AI will be like, okay, where are we getting this information from? Because we're going to get different answers. But yeah, I can definitely ask, I can do a bit of kind of digging around as well, like the kind of number 400 seems to be the one, it's coming up a lot, 400 or 500, but we can definitely kind of ask around kind of what would be the read. Yesterday, Ivan was mentioning about the number of, like, the minutes it takes to read like content, like a blog or a newsletter, so people kind of see. We see that quite a lot these days, right? It will take 2 minutes to read, like, oh, okay, only 2 minutes. Because people of one, they want stuff they want things quickly, but they want to know how long it's going to take. So I like that approach as well, kind of Ivan was saying in terms of timing. So I love it that you've, you know, taken action. It absolutely trumps like thinking rather than kind of like taking action, and then we're building this up. Yeah, we can be offering this because we're so generous and we want to give this, but actually it's a business at the end of the day. That's what we want to be able to do, is to like generate income and get kind of people into this field, and therefore, yeah, Ivan.
Sorry, just when I configured my thingamajig, my assistant, I did the instructions, I did the conversation starters. I haven't really uploaded any files per se because it's a blog creator, so I haven't put all my data in yet. But then when I came to the actions, I kind of, you know, down at the bottom it says, you know, create new action. That's where I kind of went, I forgot what that was. Did we cover that yesterday or not?
Oh, so when we were creating it, the new actions at the bottom of the left.
Yeah, when you're configuring, it says actions, create new action. I don't know.
Okay, you can go into that if you want, but we don't. I found that I don't need to do it. We can actually link it to, there are like APIs that we could link that to external kind of communications. You know how websites speak to other kind of provide, like Stripe, you know, will connect.
Oh, okay, no, just
so we don't have to necessarily do that, but you know, I like the idea of actions, like what else we can do to make it even better. But yeah, I'll dig around a little bit more on that. But then yeah, but
okay.
Dali, I found Dali, if I leave that on, I know that Colleen might be ticking on Dali to get images, but sometimes I've left that off, and I've then, you know, even when we leave, like we tick a web browser, it still picks up on that kind of space of web browsing. You know, it still does that. Yeah. Okay. Fantastic. So what we can do now is to check as we upload that information. So what Ivan might have done is not yet added information in that knowledge base, but you will have given it instructions on how you want your writing to appear in the kind of outputs, which is great. Now, it's always a good idea to have an example, because then the model understands what that example looks like. So Kathy's case, if you've got an example, really is helpful, because you're training, basically what you're doing is you're training the model to understand your style, because that's what we want it to do. The more it understands us, the better the outputs will be. And so, you know, even if we turn off the memory, but because it's relying on that knowledge base, the outputs it will go to that, because we've told it to exclusively look at the knowledge base you have here, and then provide outputs based on that. It's going to be really clear. So before you go yes, Kathy?
No, go ahead. I'll tell it when you get done, I'll finish.
Yeah, so that's kind of like one thing I would say, is giving it an example. Now, if you don't have an example, you could then have an example that you really like, okay, and maybe modify and kind of like frameworks, like coaching frameworks, for example. Everyone here will have like examples of frameworks. We don't make all this up ourselves. A lot of frameworks are given to us, or we've done step-by-step things. If we've got things like that, then we can train the model to use a framework like the one we've got. So that, I found that really helpful. an example really helps for it to kind of understand, even when you have a conversation, you know, provide it like this, use this tone, or because you've done that. Yeah, Kathy, you're going to ask.
I was just going to say that I kept my memory on for when I created this. So I found that in the newsletter, a lot of the things that the things that addressed, I think there were, I don't know, 8 or 10 things you could do. It definitely had studied things I've written before.
Yes.
I could tell it kind of knew a bit about me. So that's interesting.
Yeah. And this is something, yeah, sorry.
Even for class, can we take like models from class? Like PCU?
Yeah, I
Nothing
would.
like this?
Yeah, I
Okay.
would look at some of those examples, like some of the frameworks that we've learned. That's quite powerful. You know, like say the steps we take, those are really like, you know, like if we're making it like a call, a discovery call, because I know that most of us are working in this kind of field of coaching, like a discovery call, we got these steps, then we can give those steps and train the model to understand those steps. And so, for example, let me give you one example that might be of interest. So say if we've got a discovery call, we get on a call with a client and we want to follow these steps. Now, we've gone onto a call, we've transcribed the call, right? We've used Auto AI or another tool, right? We've transcribed it. We upload that transcript and then we use the framework to see whether that aligned and we followed a structure, which is really powerful because we're getting a tool to teach us by having a discovery call, the steps. We've gone on a call, which is a call with a potential client. And then we've seen whether we've actually done the thing that we're like learning to do. And then we're kind of using it to train ourselves. Now, you can do it in that way. The other way is that you've closed a client and you've got a sale. Well, how did that compare to someone you didn't close? You could do the same thing. So these kind of assistants are so powerful in teaching us. So it's kind of like I use it in a way to not only like to create content, but to actually learn from my own practice.
That's good.
Which is a really good way of doing it. Transcripts could be, you know, because you're using it, it's still confidential. You can kind of, you know, turn that secure, you know, and not to use any names or anything, but, you know, you could keep that. Remember, you can train the model to say, don't use names necessarily, but, you know, for your purposes, it's still private. You're using it for yourself and you can put the security kind of like you know, we can make it secure by going into the settings that I showed you yesterday, if that helps. So it's just something, yeah, Ivan.
So just coming back to the instructions, remember there was that piece when we first configured, you know, up in the beginning, where it was what was it called?
Customization.
Monologues and all of that, you know, those fancy keywords and is there a list of those things anywhere and what they do, or do we just use for example, like here in the instructions, do we just use normal narrative as we speak?
It's a really good question. Now, the language that this model GPT uses is Python. We don't need to learn Python, but we can actually extract some of that from the GPT itself. And so there are ways of doing it. And I'm building a little bit of a code family. And when I have that, then I will happily share kind of what that is, because there are certain things that we can give it in terms of instructions that we can kind of hone in and make it even more kind of, you know, like succinct. And then it aligns better, because that's where the magic is, because we don't, like, I'm not a programmer, right? But I can learn this stuff without having to do those years of like, you know, like programming, which means that we can teach ourselves. But yeah, there are codes and there is something that we can take you to the next level for sure. And I'm happy to kind of dig a little bit deeper in the next few weeks and see. Yeah, but there's definitely those. Yeah, it's a really good question, actually. That came up for me. Like, how am I going to know? Monologue tags. And then you've got the kind of, you know, language, like, I'm not going to know that, right? There's also another language which is really powerful, which I do in the prompt mastery, which is like the JSON formats, because the model gets really succinct in it doesn't, it's kind of understands that language better, which is the JSON format, which I can talk about in the next. That's a really good question. But I got kind of curious a little about that too. Okay, so we're gonna go into our GPTs. Okay, so we're gonna check that it's open, and I'll share some of these questions. And so the questions that we want to kind of hone in on is understanding context and seeing how understanding context, can it accurately reference previous messages? So maybe you've put some messages in before. So in Kathy's case, yes, that would be, perhaps you can pick that up. It might be that we can even ask it by asking it questions that, that's not in there, right? So like, unicorns or something ridiculous, right? Were unicorns mentioned in here? Well, no, they weren't, right? So, and if it picks up, then it's hallucinating and making that up. Or in terms of coherence and clarity, are the responses clear and coherent? Now, you may already have put those in the instructions, saying make sure that when make sure all the outputs are coherent and they're full sentences, right? They're not kind of they're not half sentences. That sometimes happens when I'm speaking, right? They're like, okay, but yeah, so you want coherent and clarity and short, perhaps, succinct. Are the responses clear and coherent? Creativity, how imaginative are the responses to open-ended prompts? In other words, when you ask it questions about the assistant input, how imaginative is that? There's something I can show you actually that's a little bit like, they have something in the OpenAI platform, which is the playground tool, which is called Temperature. You may have heard of this. And so that means that when it's really high, is it high? Yes. When it's high in terms of numbering, then it's going to be more imaginative, as opposed to when the numbers are low. In other words, if it's kind of giving you responses that align with what you're expecting it, then you want to be able to test that out. Something that I will go in at a different stage, definitely. But yeah, so does it make things up? If it does, then we've got to kind of go in. Factual information, how well does it handle any inquiries about events or specific knowledge? Because remember, it's going into that latent space, right? So it's picking up, it's making these predictions based on what you're asking it anyway, even when in that kind of chat, in that chat thread, if you like. But it's relying on the knowledge that you're evoking in that conversation or you've used, right? So I'll explain that a little bit more, perhaps by going into the GPT in a moment, or in the system. Relevance, are the responses relevant to the questions asked? Is it's really important that it kind of does that, because I found it does a really good job, but we've got to still test it out. Adaptability, how well does it adapt to style based on the conversation context? So sometimes you might be drawing on that based on a different style of speaking. And then we want to kind of understand if it's still able to adapt, or is it really kind of fixed, right? Error handling, can it respond to any questions to get a better response, perhaps from the user's intent? So, sometimes when you go in, you may just ask a question, it's not clear, but it might ask for clarity. We want it to ask us, and that's why we use the monologue and, that kind of coding. Task completion, does it offer step-by-step guidance when required? You may have said provide step-by-step guidance, provide one response. So you could actually go that sort of, in those sequences, which I found really helpful. Like, give me one response and then ask me another question. And I found that really helpful. So we're kind of training it to kind of, before it kind of runs off, we're kind of asking it to stop. I do this actually in the prompt mastery, where I go step by step, because that's really powerful. So user engagement, how engaging are the responses to that? So what I'd like to do in this is I found really helpful is to ask questions that I know are in the knowledge base to test how well it knows that information. That's kind of like the thing that I found really helpful. Like, for example, if you're writing a story or you're writing an article, you put it in your knowledge base. So I did this because I wrote a collaborative piece with some authors recently. And as I was writing my chapter, what I did was I uploaded a chapter of the book, which is actually, so I did a test run to check the quality of my writing. And I put that into the GPT, like into ChatGPT, and asked it questions like, does Bally mention her brother? Well, I don't mention my brother, So I was really testing to see where does she spend her time, or does it make things up? So that's kind of what I did in ways of like getting that testing on my part. Okay, so we're going to test our kind of work. I'm going to give you a few minutes to kind of go through that. We have different ways of doing. We're not going to have too long because we've only got a few moments to do this. Because the other thing we could do almost like is, no, maybe I need to go back to having 5 days. So in your feedback, that would be helpful. Like, would it be helpful to kind of like test the kind of the GPTs that we've all created? But let's do our own. Let's spend a few minutes looking at our own. And I know, Ivan, thank you for that. And Jessica, thank you for sharing yours. And I will give you some feedback as well. I can also send you that via email, right? Or we can always jump on a call later on. But go through that, the performance of your GPT and ask it questions that, and I'm going to get this one here. Ask it questions that that it's unlikely to know. But ask it questions that that it is in your knowledge base. Like, that's kind of the thing to do, because you're going to know the knowledge, the information you've inputted in there more, better than anyone else. That's kind of your, if you like, your secret sauce, right? That knowledge is what you write, you create. You're going to know it inside out, right? But I'll give you a couple of minutes to do that, and maybe questions come up for you, or you're not getting the response you expect, like say the output's not quite there, then we can kind of go through that. So I'll be quiet for a couple of minutes while you look through that, and maybe you get questions. So if anything comes up in the meantime, you can ask. Kathy, did you have a question, or are you thinking? Sorry, you're thinking.
Yeah, I'm thinking, Bally, sorry.
Oh, worries. Yeah, it's great. Yeah. Give you about another minute or so. Jessica, I can't access your assistant. Might need to go back in to my email, see what's going on. I'll double check yours, Ivan. Thank you. If I can't, I'll email you, Jessica, if that's if that's still an issue in my end. Okay, Ivan, yeah, I've got yours.
You can get in.
Yes, yeah, I can get in. Thank you. This is great. Yes, yeah. I'll give you a little run of what happens with yours then. Okay. So we did, are you okay for me to share that, Ivan?
Yes.
Yeah, perfect. Okay. Thank you. This is the one, I believe. Let's have a look because I've got, oh, look, it's still carrying on. Wow. Okay. So I'm going to stop it because it's giving me a lot. So this was the kind of prompt at the beginning, and it started with, how can I help? So with Ivan's, can you help me write a blog about? So that must have been perhaps your conversation starter, possibly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, brilliant. I love it. And then you've got absolutely, I'd love to help you write a blog. What topic would you like? And then I put, can you write about someone new to starting business with the S, even he understood my spelling error? Sure. Here's a blog post. And then it kind of says, for someone who is just starting their business, it offers practical advice, motivation, key strategies to help them succeed in early stages of entrepreneurship. And then he kind of goes through all these steps. Great. Now, as you're going through something like this, kind of giving me the title, starting the business, starting with a solid business plan, knowing your customer inside out. So when you're looking at this, does that align? Do you feel, what would you do differently based on kind of looking at this?
Well, actually, part of it's actually a little too detailed.
Okay.
So maybe I need to change the thing to make it a little more high level. And also the structure is kind of, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which is not really how I would write.
Okay. Okay. So those are some of the things that we want to go in and improve.
Mm-hmm.
And include that in the knowledge base, so you could then have a structure that resonates with you.
Okay.
And even the writing style that you have, if this isn't the style in which you would write, because I have your ideal customer, but maybe this doesn't resonate with your style of writing. So what we can do is analyze our style of writing, then create a prompt based on our style, and then input that into our knowledge base. And then,
okay, I'm with you. Yep.
So that really then gets more powerful. And then we're really kind of honing in into not only who we're serving, but the framework by which that resonates. And, people know you by using that type of structure, but then you're writing using your voice, which has analyzed your writing.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's something to think about as well. So it's great that that's a great, like that to have as a starter, which is really powerful. Yeah.
So just a question, if I got it to generate an article, then went and actually, or a blog post, then went and, because it gives me a skeleton.
Yeah.
Tweak the skeleton to fit how I would typically write, as in a Word document, copy it out, do it in a Word document. It has my, I don't know, personality or whatever you want to call it, style of writing. Save that and then upload that as a resource. Is that what you're kind of saying that it would then look at?
Yeah, you could do it that way. You could have that. You could create kind of like a example piece that you feel that kind of is the one you want people to be looking at. And then, because the idea in a business is to have automation, have systems in place, because but if we have those, it just makes, we don't have to create it every time. So yes, I would then upload that. You could then even ask it to give you a prompt that understands that. That kind of gets a little bit, there are a couple of steps along that, but yeah. But even if you do it in text-based, it will definitely understand. You could use that as a file, upload it as a PDF, or even keep it in the chat. So for example, you did that, so that's great, but that's not the structure I want. This is the structure I want. You could do it in that instance. But if it's becoming more permanent, then put it into your system, becomes your permanent knowledge base. That's kind of the thing to do. Yeah, brilliant. I'm really excited that, once you have that, which is great. So any questions around that? Because there's, Jessica, how did you find yours too? I need to go in and look at that a little bit more.
Good. I think when I was working in it, I asked it, what other information do you need for me to be able to do your job better?
Yeah.
And so it gave me a couple things that I just added. And then I added a couple things more because I did a sample, like, can you show me a sample week? And it had a couple things that I didn't really want. So I changed a couple things. And then I just asked it, like, do you have any questions? And so then it just gave me a couple more questions to answer.
Okay, so yeah, so that's great, because it's actually then having a dialogue with you. You can then say, do you have questions? If you're a top sort of blog writer, what questions would you ask me? What are 3 questions you want me to respond to? And things like that kind of really works quite powerfully. And yeah, so more we can kind of train it. So initially, the initial steps are the work that we do to create it. And then once we have it, we're testing it. And then once we have it, we then just use it. Like Kathy's going to be getting those newsletters and, the writing, beg your pardon, the blog every week. Because now that you're going to, have a blog every week, which is going to be writing 400 words, you want to target that market. And then we want to see that, are we getting it under the people that are wanting that, resonates and are going to be then wanting your services. Potentially, that's kind of what we're going to be doing, right? That's the thing. Okay, so once you've tested, is there anything about in terms of the setup so far, in terms of things coming up? Are we happy with that? Okay, so I want to show you something else before we, kind of come to an end for today's session. I want to show you something that I found really helpful, which, even if you don't have a website, because like I've stopped using my website, a lot of people don't actually have a website. So Kathy, like we may not have a website, but I found that this particular assistant, or, it looks at, it understands the purpose and transformation analyzer. And what I found really interesting, so if we get like a bio or a website, or, or say if we're well known, it can provide us with like an overview of like who we like, like from our bio, it can tell us a little bit about the transformation we provide our clients. So this couple created this GPT, which I found really helpful, but they then, based on just a few words, few lines from a bio, say from a social, like from a LinkedIn site, from perhaps from Instagram, you've got a bio, you can upload it and check it. I'm happy to share that if you want to use it, just to kind of find out the transformation that you're then able to offer. So as a kind of promise to the market that you're able to say, okay, this is what I do. So I can copy that and share it with you, and then you can test it out to see kind of like the transformation, because we want to be able to use that even maybe in our marketing material. Maybe we just, perhaps it's picking, sorry, were there some questions that didn't, oh, Kathy, yes, did you have something, Kathy, you wanted to highlight?
No, that's good. Do you see websites maybe fading a bit?
Good question. I feel that because websites will be a place where people look for info, but people will go online and see where you are. Like if you're on LinkedIn, because my posts are getting, people can see like what I'm doing just by like even say Google or Perplexity, you know, there'd always be a place for it, but a lot of people I know in business don't have websites yet.
Thank you.
So yeah, it's an open kind of discussion because it's like how you know, what's, you know, our branding really matters, like how we're showing up in the world really matters, like that professional kind of, you know, knowing us as coaches or knowing as business owners out there, that matter a huge amount.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's a really valid question, really, like because the whole search engine optimization stuff is the thing that people always talked about, like, oh, you know, how are we going to get found because Google, you know, may not find us, you know, but now with all these different platforms that, you know, we're there, we're online. That's what matters really. Okay, so before we kind of, I have gone over, so my apologies. So these are some of the questions to check, and I'm more than happy to kind of share those GPTs or assistants with me. I'm more than happy to look at those. And Jessica, I'll make sure that I do a little, you know, like make sure I can access it, and I'll send you a response. But we can actually test it ourselves to see. So we want to like rate our. I created this scale, and in fact I got my assistant to help me create a scale, like how like. So tell me the performance of my GPT, right? So give me a sort of like a scale from 1 to 5, and I created this kind of. Hello, sorry, have I? Yeah. So
No, I have the wrong number.
okay. And then we've got accuracy, efficiency, and value added, and list any adjustments you plan to make, right? So I did create a little sheet, and I'm kind of happy to share that if you'd like me to. But tell you the truth, but the key thing is that we have our assistant at the end. And the challenge of 4 days together were that we've got access to our AI tool, which is the ChatGPT. Of course, there are going to be other tools out there, but if we stick to one for now and learn this, because these skills are transferable into any other tools that we use. We've customized our settings so that reflects our voice and, you know, kind of us showing up in this space. And now you have instructions, build assistance, whether it's in terms of creating frameworks, whether it's creating a brand identity, or, you know, you're creating a writing analysis or a blog, or, you know, then have those assistants and then evoke those assistants. If you need me to show you again how you evoke that in conversation, I'm more than happy to do that. You want to test your AI system, that's what we've been doing today, and get feedback, which I'll be sharing that with you, and then you know what you're doing next. But before we finish, tell me what your next steps are, and thank you so very much. And you've got my details, you've got my information in the slides, and I really appreciate you. Do you have any questions? What are your next steps moving forward? Let's go one by one, and then we'll kind of. Okay, Jessica, what's your next step moving forward?
I think just playing around with my assistant some more, maybe building out the customization of my ChatGPT towards me a little bit more. I do like the idea that the brand one you showed of like putting my website and seeing like what it comes up with, that might like what my brand and bio and stuff. And maybe just building out, you know, experimenting and building out some more assistance for whatever I need.
Exactly, fantastic. Yeah, so you've got that GPT, which you can then put in your sidebar, and if you use it, or yeah, so it could be from the website, could be from your social media site, or you could just ask it simply, who am I? Like, this is me, who am I? Like, it's not going to know you until you put your name obviously in there. And you can clear the memory if you want to switch that off, so it doesn't even know who you are when you put that in. It's even better. You can test that. Okay, so Colleen, what's your next step?
For starters, Bailey, thank you. I'm so grateful for this challenge and for you allowing me to stretch and grow. My next steps are really to start getting clear on brand voice, brand client avatar, and feeding that information so that when my AI functions, it really is speaking to my clients and kind of getting clear on that. So I think that's more the upload section in the knowledge of my assistant. But thank you, Bailey. I appreciate
Yeah,
it.
you're welcome. Yeah, it's been a pleasure, absolutely. And I might even share a couple of questions you can kind of, that will guide you when you're thinking about that too. So yeah, you're welcome. It's been a pleasure. Ivan, what about yourself?
Actually, you've kind of blown my mind a little bit here. So, probably the big thing I think Jessica actually alluded to, it reminded me of what you said yesterday, is you need to ask it questions like, what other information do you need, and then it'll give you something and you go, oh shit, I forgot about that, and then you tweak it and then you ask it again and you keep doing that until you're happy with it. So that was a great reminder. The other one is, I probably have 3 or 4 different assistants, and I probably would never have walked down this road if it wasn't for you. So I'm really grateful for everything that you've shown us. And probably the last thing is probably just trying to understand a little bit more about how I can see how it creates content, and that's really a no-brainer. Details and blog posts. Here's a model. Whether we use a Grow model or any of the other models that exist in the world, or you create your own one and you say, well, write me a thing, do me a thing, whatever. And it'll create content and words and a picture, right? Which I've already done. I have to tell you, I really impressed myself. So that was like, whoa. And then the thing that I'm really interested in is, how do I get it to, and that's probably a conversation for another time, is how do I get it to do some of the tasks? Because I've heard that it can do some tasks, like, so that's just a question. But that's for tomorrow. That's another day.
Yeah, absolutely. So it can actually do the task manually. And that was one of the recordings that came up a few weeks ago, and I can share that. It was like, how do I get it to do things away from this environment, from the GPT? And there is something called make.com, and I'm actually learning this at the moment, which automates the whole process from an inquiry, responding to an email, then it goes back into the GPT environment, then it comes back. There are ways like agencies are using this, and this is kind of what I'm learning behind the scenes. Which is like, I'm in January 2025. I'm like, I'm so excited, because once I've got this is going to be such an amazing thing, because then we can test it out. And that's where the power is, because you can still kind of have that. It can all then it can be automated, which means that what are we going to do with all our time then, right? But we'll be serving the people we want. That's the whole idea behind it.
No, beach, Bahamas, margaritas. I'm there already. So.
Yeah, it's the automation bit's the exciting bit. Like, what this stuff that we're doing now is laying the foundation for the bigger stuff that then we're able to do later on. And I really believe that's kind of the underlying stuff.
I would agree.
Yeah, well, thank you so much, Ivan. Appreciate you and your feedback. And Simbo, thank you. I know that that it's been a few days since you did this, and yeah, what are your next steps?
Yeah, thank you, Bally. I mean, I always enjoy working with you, and before this challenge, I didn't even know the AI assistant was a thing, and I've got to the extent of, done my bio, and, and I'm trying to develop my AI assistant to the extent that it knows me and then generate the content I want it to. But I think mostly what I would like it to do is just save me time, because I'm ever so busy. So I want it to be able to do that for me. So that's the ultimate.
100%, yeah. And Colin's gone. Every time we're repeating things, this is when we want to jot that down. So why am I repeating this? And can I sort of create systems around this, Like if I was to give this to an intern or someone to do, or you know, like we have assistants, right? You have assistant support. Like if I was to hand this over, can somebody pick this up? And every time we do that, so Jessica, thank you, and I'll speak to you later. I know they've got another call as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that's the thing. You want to speed it up. So email writing, if we've got like a framework, we can upload that. If we've got you know, like anything we're repeating or we're doing, then we can systemize it. That's the best thing. And I know my creative brain goes like, oh, I'm going to create this, but actually the more we systemize, it frees us up to serve clients, and that's kind of why we're doing what we do. Yeah. But
Thank you.
You're welcome. And share your, you know, questions, Simba. We can more, you know, we can jump on a call and we can go through what you're doing. And, you know, if there are things that you feel like you're spending more time, I know you're super busy at the moment, so I appreciate you coming on. And I know it's a really busy time for you. Kathy, thank you. What's your next step?
Sorry, I signed into PCU. But anyway, I wanted to, first of all, thank you. Truly, I concur with what Ivan said, what Colleen, what everyone said. I mean, amazing. Simbo said she didn't even know about an assistant. Neither did I, girl. Never knew it was such a thing. So anyway, thank you so much, Bally. Your class was excellent. I look forward to taking more classes.
Yeah.
I look forward to advertising for you.
Yeah, thank you.
Are truly excellent in what you do.
Yeah.
I look forward to building more assistants. I want to have one for my real estate business, you know, and I think Ivan said that, and so did Jessica. I look forward to having one for every avenue I'm involved in.
Beautiful, absolutely. And it's incredible. And that's where the power is, because you can create that bank and data and then access that without having to think what code or where it was. And when we have so much, and because this is really powerful knowledge, you know, like I believe that we're all not, you know, with our knowledge, and that more we're able to share that, the bigger impact, and we're going to make a difference in this world. So thank you so much.
Yeah.
And it's a pleasure working with you. And I learned so much from what you're asking, and then it means I go away and then start doing some work behind the scenes, because I fell in love with it. I'm a little bit obsessed with it, but I love it.
Good. I'm Team Bally. I think we're all Team Bally now. So you've got cheerleaders and,
Thank
you
you.
know, students, and I don't
Yeah.
know, whatever you want to use this for, I guess, right, guys?
Yeah. I love you. I love just being able to do this and serve. That's kind of what makes, that's, you know, it's a gift, right, to be able to do that. So I appreciate you, and you know, I'm really excited for your success here, Kathy. And what
Thank
you
you.
said was like getting those clients. At the end of the day, it's about getting those clients, and we can then,
Yeah.
you know, and make that impact and have the life that we deserve, right? That's what we want to be able to do. Thank you so very much, and I'll see you soon, and I'll share the recordings, and I'll ask for a bit of feedback if you've got like ways of improving, because that's will help me tremendously. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Have a
All
good
right.
day, everyone.
Ciao for now. Bye now. Bye.